Nashville will never cease to amaze me. What is up, everybody? Thanks for coming back to the channel. I'm Steve. I hope you like that new intro. Big shout out to my friend Andrew Brooks for putting that intro together for me. Excuse my voice, I got a little bit of a cold. Everything's going around these days. I'm just lucky that it's not the flu, knock on wood, right? But today, I wanted to share with you a little story about a guitar that I recently purchased from a famous musician slash producer. Through the years, I've moved down to Nashville about, I want to say 5 years ago in 2020, or as soon as COVID hit, really. And since I've been here, I've been lucky enough to meet some big time musicians because it's just the nature of being in Nashville, right? I used to live in New York. I grew up in New York in Staten Island and, lived there since I was born till I was about 38 years old. And when you live in New York, you see lots of celebrities. If you walk through Manhattan, you might see Ben Affleck or Spike Lee was in Brooklyn all the time. The Wu-Tang Clan resided in Staten Island where I grew up, so I saw them all the time. So seeing celebrities wasn't, necessarily new to me, but seeing musicians at such a high level, at such a high frequency, is new to me living here in Nashville. Since I've been here, I've bought a guitar from Bob Dylan's Guitar Tech. I bought a Rickenbacker 12-string from Bob Dylan's Guitar Tech. He was trying to fund the purchase of a piano that he wanted, and he was selling off some of his Rickenbackers, and I was lucky enough to meet him and talk to him about going on the road with Bob Dylan and stuff like that. And I bought a Rickenbacker off him. I was also lucky to meet, I think I mentioned it in another video, I traded a Martin D41 acoustic guitar with a guy who wrote a #1 hit for Riley Green, and who also has writing credits with Luke Combs. I can't remember the gentleman's name off the top of my head. I met him like 3 years ago. I traded a Martin D41 to him for a Gibson 335, a cherry red Gibson 335. And he wrote There Was This Girl, a song called There Was This Girl that Riley Green recorded. It's one of my favorite Riley Green songs. I love Riley Green. He's such a great country artist. And he also writes for Luke Combs, the guy who traded me the guitar. So I was able to meet him. I met a couple of American Idol contestants and The Voice contestants, trading guitars with them. Like, I meet these guys at like the Guitar Center here in Nashville, and we trade guitars in the parking lot. And they tell me they've been on, these big TV shows, and it's really, really cool. So one day I'm on Facebook Marketplace, as I normally am, and because that's all I do all day long. I'm either on my phone, scrolling through my phone on Facebook Marketplace, or I'm on Craigslist looking for a good deal. And something came up that I just didn't necessarily need, but it was a good price. And I love looking for things at good prices. I don't just trade to trade up or things like that. I do buy stuff if I have the means to do so. So I'm scrolling through and I see an Explorer. I see a Gibson Explorer on Facebook Marketplace, and typically, a new Gibson Explorer is probably going to run you a little bit over $2,000 if you were to buy one new from, say, Guitar Center or Musician's Friend or Sweetwater or something like that. On the used market, you can probably get one, between $1,500 and $1,700 in Nashville. Now, I know Nashville has a very big pool of guitars and gear to buy or to get on the used market. It's not like it was in New York, and I go on Craigslist for other cities, and it's not like it is in other cities. The amount of good equipment that's available on the used market here in Nashville is amazing. There's so much to choose from. Like, if you ever need anything, chances are you can go on Facebook in Nashville and find exactly what you need at any moment. It's crazy. Like when I was in New York looking at stuff on Craigslist, you might go through a page or two on Craigslist before you even click on something that's worthwhile. I do a live stream every week, and what I do on that live stream is, whoever's in the chat will tell me what city they live in, and we go on a guitar safari in their city. So we've been, doing guitar safaris online, virtually, like on Craigslist in Bloomington, Indiana. We went to Mesa, Arizona, online, and there's not a lot to choose from a lot of times in these small towns. You go onto the Nashville Craigslist page, Les Paul Customs, vintage Strats, vintage Tellys, all the stuff that you could ever possibly want and need. Amps, old amps. There's so much stuff to choose from. So here, I see this Gibson Explorer for $1,500. The guy listed it for $1,500. And I took a look at it and I'm like, well, there's definitely been some modifications to it. And I personally am not one for modded guitars. If I'm gonna get a modded guitar, it's gonna be modded by me. Okay, I want to be the one who mods my guitars. I don't necessarily like, buying guitars that have pickup swaps or tuner changes to gear, machine head changes or things like that. So what I see on Facebook is I see this guitar. And I notice that obviously these are not the correct pickups. These are not the original pickups for the guitar. Originally you would have, the chrome covers on the pickups. You wouldn't have the double creams on there. I also noticed that the pick guard has been changed. This should be white. Okay, this pick guard should be white. And I don't think I noticed anything else off the top just from that. So I click into it, but $1,500 is a decent price. And it looked like it was in good shape. And the person that was selling it in the description said that 2018 Gibson Explorer, used on tour with producer Butch Walker. And you see that a lot in Nashville listings. You'll see people name drop in the description, either because they bought it from the person, or they bought it from their estate or something like that. So they and I don't know who Butch Walker is at this point. I have no idea who Butch Walker is just by reading the name. I'm not good like that. I don't know a lot of names of people that are in bands or things like that. I really have to get into a band and deep dive into the band before I start knowing people's names of who's in the band and stuff like that. People ask me, who's your favorite guitar player? And I'm like, oh, the dude from Thin Lizzy. He was. I really love his stuff. And it's like, I don't know the names. So I'm really bad like that. So I see Butch Walker. It doesn't necessarily ring a bell to me at the moment. So I email the guy. I Facebook message him. I'm like, hey, would you take, I'm always on the lookout for a deal. I was like, hey, would you take $1,200? I'll pick it up tomorrow. And the guy was like, nah, I can't do anything less than 14. So I'm like, well, all I got is 12. If you change your mind, let me know. Because I don't need an Explorer at this point. I don't need it. I just thought maybe if I could get it for $1,200, it would be a great deal. Maybe I could use it as trade bait for something else. I do that all the time. If I see something that's a really good price, I'll put the money up front for like a $1,200 guitar that I know I can flip to somebody who will value it at $1,600, right? So I'll make $400 off the deal or something like that. I won't really make the cash, but I'll make the equity in a trade, right? I do that all the time. I bought a 98 Les Paul Standard for like $1,300. I traded it for a guitar that was worth like $2,000. And I didn't spend $2,000 on that guitar. So I try to do that when I can. So I figured this would be a good deal. If I can get it for $1,200, I could probably flip it for 15, not for cash, but in a trade value to someone else. So I text the guy back. I'm like, would you do 13? Meet me in the middle and do 13. And he says, sure. You got to meet me at this house in Nashville. So I'm like, okay, sounds great. And he texts me later. He goes, the house is a financial building. It's going to look like a house, but it's really an office building. So don't get confused when you pull up. Ask for this girl. She'll do the transaction with you. I said, oh, okay. So I pull up to this. It's like an old, like historic house in Nashville. Really nice little white house, a Southern style house. and it has a plaque on the front. It's a financial building, like a financial business. And I walk in, and there's gold records and platinum records lining the walls of this building. And I start taking, and it's a really cool little building. Leather couches, everything's real modern and stuff, but in an old building, it's really cool. I start looking at the records, and it's like Alter Bridge, Kings of Leon, all these big band names that I know and I admire. I love Kings of Leon. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. Alter Bridge is a great band. The Mark Tremonti and Miles Kennedy band that are just phenomenal musicians and make great music. So I'm like, wow, I was like, this must be the people who represent Butch Walker, whoever Butch Walker is at the time, right? So I knock on the door, I see the girl. I was like, hi, are you so-and-so? I'm here for the Explorer. And she goes, yeah, sure. And it's just laying there in a case on a couch. And she opens up her Venmo and says, okay, Venmo me the $1,300. And I was like, so are you guys like selling his estate? Like, is he having an estate sale, or is he selling a collection? And she's like, no, I don't know really. He's just, they just were selling some of his stuff, and this is it. So I purchased it, and I'm like, do you mind if I look around? She's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. It was like the end of the day. I was probably bothering her, but she was a really, really sweet girl. And I go in the car, and I have my son with me, and we had to, pick up my daughter at school or something. So we decided to pull into like a little bakery and just, kill some time. So I decide to go online and look up who's Butch Walker. Since I got this guy's guitar, I wonder who Butch Walker is. So that leads me to what I'm going to show you now. So who is Butch Walker, right? So when I'm online and I'm trying to find this out, I find out that Butch Walker is a producer slash music, and guitar player who has a pretty, how do I say it, impressive resume. Okay, he was the lead guitar player for a couple of glam metal bands, one called South Gang. He was the lead vocalist and guitarist for a band that he's most famous for singing in, called the Marvelous Three. And they had a hit. They had a really, really big hit back in either the late 90s, early 2000s, called Freak of the Week. And if you heard that song on the radio, you are of my age, 40 years old or older, you would definitely know that song. If you heard the lick and you heard the riff and the hook of that song, you would definitely know it. Big hit back in the day. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. They had a pretty big hit. And then I find out that he produced all of these famous bands. He produced Fall Out Boy, he produced Pink, he produced Green Day, he produced Weezer, who's one of my favorite bands. I produced Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Sevendust, which Sevendust kind of threw me for a loop because Sevendust is really heavy metal, and the other bands are not so heavy metal, right? Green Day's, punk, Pink is kind of poppy, Fall Out Boy is kind of like alternative stuff. Taylor Swift is absolutely pop, right? And then Sevendust, like Sevendust is in your face, heavy metal. I saw them open up for Avenged Sevenfold. They were insanely good band. But he has all of these credits on all these songs, and this is just a glimpse of what he's done. Like this is nowhere near all of the work that he's done. He's worked on all these with all these other artists too that I couldn't name them all. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. This guy's like a legit producer. Like I actually own someone's really, cool guitar. So then I was like, you know what? Maybe if I go online, I can find him playing the actual Explorer. And that would be really cool because I document all my guitars in a book. And it would be really cool to have that picture next to, the picture of the guitar in the house and stuff like that. So I Google image him, and this is the picture that comes up. And I was like, oh my God. So he was on an episode of Rick Beato, on Rick Beato's channel, where Rick Beato interviews producers. And Rick Beato, if you haven't seen Rick Beato's channel, you're really missing out. You have to go and check out Rick Beato, one of the best guitar channels out there. He teaches you how to do things. He'll listen to top 40 charts on Spotify and critique the music. And he's a producer himself. He's an amazing guitar player himself, and he is a very, very good interviewer when it comes to these musicians and these producers that he has on the show. And I watched this episode a week before I got this guitar. I just didn't put together his name because it didn't ring a bell to me. And you can even see behind him in that thumbnail that he worked with Avril Lavigne and Train and Katy Perry, Panic at the Disco, so many other bands that this guy has worked with. And I really enjoyed the episode. I watched this whole episode front to end with Rick Beato, and I remember really enjoying listening to him, speak about, him growing up and how he learned how to play guitar and the bands that he played in and trying to get record deals and then eventually becoming a producer and all this stuff. And it was really, really good episode. I didn't remember the name of the person that he interviewed because I didn't recognize him as a musician or anything like that, but I enjoyed the episode. And then when I Googled it, I was like, oh my God, it's this guy. That's really cool. So then I started digging around on the internet like I do. And I was like, all right, let's see if I can find some images of Butch Walker and see if I can get this guitar in his hands. So I go on YouTube and I find Rig Rundown, which is from Premier Guitar. Okay, if you haven't watched Rig Rundown on Premier Guitar, you're also missing out. So that's two things you need to do for homework. Find Rick Beato and check out his channel and subscribe to Premier Guitar. So that's John Berenger, of the guy on the right with the white hair and the tall skinny dude. And he is one of the hosts on Premier Guitar, and he does a show called Rig Rundown, where he will interview a musician, and the musician will then show John their rig, their guitars, their pedal boards, their amps, and it's usually at some type of venue. A lot of times it's here in Nashville because John lives in Nashville, and a lot of times it's either at the Ryman or it's at the Bridgestone Arena, which is here in Nashville. And this one happened to be with Butch Walker. So I'm watching, I'm with my son, I'm in this bakery waiting, biding time, and I'm looking, and I don't know if you could see it, but if you look past the Telecaster that Butch is holding, it looks to me, and I'm like, that could be an Explorer sitting in the guitar rack to the left of the space, right? There's a space in the middle of that guitar rack where I'm assuming that Telecaster came from. To the left of that empty space, that could be an Explorer. I'm thinking to myself, maybe it could be, maybe it's a Firebird, who knows? So I'm just gonna let this play out. I want you guys to listen to this portion of the episode.
You're getting this tour's, stuff.
Yeah, the stuff you're playing today.
Yes,
Oh, that's
yes,
great.
sir. Let's go back to my last but not least, the Gibson Explorer, which is, I pull this out for the last few songs of the set.
At this point, I am losing my mind. I'm shaking my son. I'm like, dude, it's the guitar. Look, the guitar I bought it's a famous guitar by a famous guy. And he's 11 and he doesn't, do music and well, he does music, but he's not into the same music that I'm into. And he's like, really? Like that guitar's in this case? Because the case is right under his feet in the back of my truck. And he's like, that guitar's in this case? And I'm like, yeah, man, that guitar's in this case. He's like, oh, that's really cool. So I got some street cred with my son for a minute. But I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the guitar I just bought is showing up on one of the shows that I watch religiously, which is Rig Rundown. So and it gets better. It only gets better from here. Wait till you hear what Butch says about this guitar.
Oh, that is a rock and roll machine right there.
It is a
boy.
rock and roll machine. And it is, you just turn it on and pretty stupid.
Sounds
It's like
great.
fun. But this is a fun story too. Is I put I put a pair of vintage, I should probably tell you what it is first. It's just literally I think it's a 2019. I bought it off a Reverb.
Huh.
And I just had a craving that day. And
I just want to stop it there and just remark on the fact that these famous people, these famous producers, these famous musicians have the same itches that all of us normal people have, where I'll be I got this guitar because I had an itch for something, and I'm on Facebook Marketplace just scrolling, and something came up, and just like him, he was sitting home, he was having some wine, he was on eBay, and he was like, you know what, I don't have an Explorer, I'm just gonna go get myself an Explorer. And I just think that's so cool how someone with his means, which are greater than my means, he can buy things that I can't buy. He's just out there buying random stuff off eBay, just like the rest of us. I think that's so cool.
Left and right.
Oh, yeah.
Alan Collins to you name it, to obviously Billy Gibbons. So many of my heroes played them. I was a big Scorpions fan. I loved Matthias Jabs as well. But then a lot of the Blues Cats played them. And so it was a really cool guitar to see growing up, and he goes like, that doesn't look practical, I'll probably never get one of those. And every time I ever sat and played one, they always sounded really cool.
Yeah.
Really just like mid-rangey and barky, and
and
the necks are super fast and fun. So I was like, I've got the last few songs of the set are just unapologetically rock and roll, rock, R-A-W-K. And so I bought this for like $800.
God,
and it was brand new. It didn't have a ding on it. It does now, but what I did is I swapped out the pick guard for a black, which I know is sacrilege, but whatever. This is a 2019, and I don't make the rules.
That's why it doesn't have the white pick guard. Answered my question there.
But these pickups, I also went on Reverb, and probably picked those up on a late night binge of like, oh, there's a set of 70s vintage DiMarzio Super Distortions.
Oh, great.
Because, and this is before I actually started, working with DiMarzio, on getting.
So now I know that it's not just some random set of pickups that he just threw in there. They're a pair of vintage DiMarzios. So it gets even better.
Pickups and putting them in my guitars and stuff. I just bought them off of Reverb for a couple $100. And it just said 70s DiMarzio Super Distortions, and those can be fun. They can be awful. They can also be really good. It just depends. So I was like, I'll take a gamble. I got them, and when I got them, they were wired weird. They were wired like 3-conductor only. No schematics online anywhere for that. And so they were wired into a guitar by a luthier out in LA or whatever, completely wrong. It sounded completely wrong. Something was going on with them. I don't know what was going on. It was weird. And so I took them out, and then I called Larry DiMarzio. And Larry and I got on the phone, and because I had texted him a picture of them, and he called me immediately. He goes, man, I think that's some of the first Super Distortion pickups I ever made.
Wow.
He said, I think those are like the first ones, like some of the first ones I ever made, before I had to go 4-conductor wire, because when they were going in all the the BC Riches and stuff with all the toggles and shit everywhere, they wanted them coil tappable. So they wanted to be able to split the coils. So they all went to.
So how freaking cool is that? I could potentially have one of the first ever produced Super Distortion pickups by DiMarzio. That made the value of this guitar to me so much more. And I don't understand why, when he sold this guitar, he didn't take the pickups out. That's the same pickups that I bought the guitar in, that are in the guitar when I bought it. I can't believe he sold the guitar and left the pickups in there. If I was Butch Walker, I would have taken the pickups out, because unless he found out, I don't know when this video was. This video was 2 years ago. So maybe in those 2 years he found out that maybe weren't the first ones, but I don't know that. All I have to go from, unless Butch Walker gets back to me or comments on this video, all I know is that these could be potentially one of the first ever DiMarzio Super Distortions ever made. And I think that's really, really cool. What are the chances?
Am I saying that right? They wanted 4 conductors, so there was
Yeah.
4 wires and
Yeah.
a ground. So so he walked me through it with my soldering iron on the phone. He goes, he's like, you're gonna take that red wire and you're gonna take it with the black one and you're gonna tape these off and blah blah blah.
God.
And I put it in there and you heard it. It sounds.
God,
it
that's
sounds,
great.
so dumb. I love it.
Oh, it's great.
And I love this guitar. It's so fun. So, again, not precious. 2019 Gibson Explorer.
Yeah.
And
It's a
With a great
2018
story.
one.
Okay,
I mean,
that's-
I throw this thing, 30 feet off from the.
So I just thought that was really, really cool, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So the DiMarzio Super Distortion, okay? They were invented in 1972 by Larry DiMarzio, and basically anyone who does pickup swaps in their guitars has basically bought a set of these and put them in their guitars. They've been used from Kurt Cobain to Ace Frehley. I've read in magazines and in articles that these pickups just give you that Kiss Alive sound, and I got to say the guitar is just gnarly, man. It gets so distorted. It sounds so good going through my Marshall amp that I have, and I just thought that was a really, really cool thing that I could share with you guys. And I'm gonna play it a little bit for you. I'm gonna have it going through. I bought myself an old Zoom pedal. I don't know if you guys remember Zoom pedals. If you're young, if you're probably in your 20s or younger, you probably don't know these big multi-effects pedals. Like now they have like fractals and things like that, but before the fractal and all those insane pedals like Zoom and Line 6 and Boss and Vox all had their own multi-effects pedals with expression foot pedals on them and stuff like that. And I went out and I bought one for cheap in Nashville. So I have that Zoom pedal running through my soundboard, and I'll give you some tones on the Explorer and let you check it out how gnarly it is. But thank you to everybody for listening to my story. Comment in the comment section. Tell me what you think of the story. Tell me if you think it's cool, if you think it's lame. Tell me if you like Butch Walker and his music. Tell me if you like the guitar. I think I got a good deal. $1,300 for a 2018 Explorer with possibly the first ever batch of Super Distortion DiMarzio pickups in them. I think that's pretty cool. But subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, so here it is on clean on the bridge. Won't play too much clean for you. I know no one wants to hear that. Thanks, everybody. Peace out.